What if the speed of light was 30 miles an hour?
What if Earth had two suns?
Which cereal mascot would win in a fight?
What if everyone lived underground?
What if it
What
rained
if money
food?
grew on
What
trees?
if pigs could fly?
I don't know if that would actually happen.
It's much easier to store a unicycle than to store a horse.
Hello everybody and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show where we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and Ben Storms. Say hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Ben.
Guys, we have somehow made it through 164 episodes of this show without ever actually getting down to the animal that a lot of us interact with the most out of all the animals, which is dogs. We talk about so many animals. We have not actually spent time on dogs yet.
We've talked about how we're running out of animals to talk about.
Yeah, so we've done a couple episodes like this. Our question today is, what if you could perfectly train dogs? Now, obviously, you can train dogs already, and dogs can be very well trained. We're not talking about that kind of training. It's not like you're the best dog trainer in the world. You're going to be, but you're going to be magically kind of good at it. You can have dogs do whatever you want them to that's within a dog's capabilities. You just train them perfectly. They listen to what you want, and they'll do it for you. I guess the training method doesn't have to be realistic. They're just all perfectly trained pups.
We kind of before we started recording, we used Aquaman as an example. It's like Aquaman but for dogs.
Dogquaman.
Dogquaman.
Dogquaman. I'm sticking with that. I've committed to it.
Barquaman. Dogquaman, I think, is better. Anyway.
It's not. Anyway.
Chris, I think I'm going to let you jump right in with yours, because you're answering a pretty classic question for us, huh?
Yes. So, like Marcus said, we've already trained dogs to do a lot of things. I wanted to try to do something that's not really that we haven't done before with dogs. But we have done it on the show before, actually, in a lightning round. It was our previous lightning round. And that was, what if dogs played poker? And I wanted to actually answer this question, even though I was kind of against it originally. And it took a long time to actually answer and put on the lightning round.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes. I wrote down, I knew we had a gap about dogs. I realized it maybe, 80 episodes ago, and put what if dogs played poker as a kind of a placeholder to do a dog question at some point, and have caught nothing but crap for it since.
Well, you're being vindicated now, so enjoy it. So just to get a little into the history of why is dogs playing poker a thing? So dogs playing poker is based on, there are 18 famous paintings by Cassius Marcellus Coolidge. The original one was in 1894. It was an oil painting, I think. And that was followed by 16 other oil paintings that were actually a series of cigar advertisements that were commissioned by Brown and Bigelow between the years of 1903 and 1906. Now, not all of these 16 paintings were of dogs playing poker. Some of them were of dogs reading mail or dogs testifying in court. But the series is generally called Dogs Playing Poker, just because that's the famous thing. And then after that series, there's one more painting in 1910 of more dogs playing poker. So that's kind of where it came from, and that's why we talk about it at all.
That's why anyone bother with the paintings.
Yeah. So I want to see, can we actually train them to play poker? Do they have the capability of playing poker in the first place if I wanted to train them to do it? Because if they don't have the capability, then it's pointless in training them to do it. It's an impossible task. And I didn't want to just have them play against other dogs, because then the bar is pretty low for how good they have to be. I wanted them to play with humans. I wanted them to compete in tournaments and stuff. So the first thing is, obviously, can they physically hold the cards and handle the chips and stuff? The chips I don't think are an issue. They can just nudge it with their paw or move it with their mouth or something. The cards are more of an issue, because you need to have a way to look at your cards but not have anyone else see your cards, which is a little tough with paws and no thumbs. Normally, players, tournament players, they usually keep their cards on the table and bend up the upper half of their card to see it. Dogs can't really do that. They're less dexterous. In our lightning round, we kind of solved this a little bit, where we suggested that the dogs play on a bowl-shaped table where the edges are curved up.
Oh my god, yeah.
And then they can just slide the cards up against the edge of the table, like the top of the bowl, and they'll be able to see their cards, and no one else will be able to see their cards. Since it is only our dog playing and the rest of them are humans, I'm going to modify this a little bit. We're not using a bowl-sized table, or bowl-shaped table. It's a normal table, but we're going to bring like a mini ramp sort of thing that our dog can use to look at their cards. So that solves that problem. Next, I don't think they really need to speak because like you can do most things in poker non-verbally. I think you can actually do everything non-verbally.
Yeah, it's like full call and raise. You have to put chips or your cards in the middle, right?
Well, I think you like there's like knocking the table with your hand.
That's for checking.
Oh, checking. Yeah, you can check.
Yeah. There's stuff like that. There's like other things you can signal to do that instead of speaking. So no issue with that with our dogs. Next thing is bluffing. Bluffing is a big part of poker. We need to be able to deceive the other players and manipulate them. So I want to see if dogs are capable of that. So there was a 2017 study where they observed the facial expressions of dogs, and they compared it to when a human was like paying attention to them or when they were turned away. And the dogs consistently exhibited more facial features when the human was paying attention to them. They also compared this to when there was like food around and when there wasn't food around. And they considered the food a stimulating factor, but not a social factor, whereas the human is a social factor. And what they found was that with the food present, their facial features or their facial expressions didn't really change at all, like the frequency of them, which suggests that the dogs have control over, like it's not an involuntary thing, their facial expressions. They can actively use them to communicate in social situations. So that was sort of the outcome of that study. There was another study by some of the same people, some of them were different, 2 years later in 2019, where they found that dogs have developed more facial muscles. So they compared domesticated dogs to wolves, and they found that the facial muscles were very similar on both of them, and really the only place that it differed was around the eyes. So the eyes were more expressive in domesticated dogs, and domesticated dogs are able to make their eyes larger and resemble the movement of human eyes when they're sad. And this allows them to elicit caregiving responses from humans. And their hypothesis was that they sort of developed this because of domestication. Domestication requires that a human selects you. So if you look all like sad and doughy-eyed, then the human is more likely to pick you. So they said that sort of thing kind of developed over like the 30,000 years of domestication of dogs. So both of these studies kind of demonstrate that dogs have the ability to actively control their facial features. It's not just involuntary. And they use their facial features to manipulate people. So that's good for poker.
Yeah, kind of an aggressive way to put it. They use it to communicate with people, not manipulate.
Well, if they want
they want food.
They want to get chosen.
Manipulating
yeah,
the
they
most
want food.
scientific use of the term, yes.
They elicit a caregiving response, which is manipulating, kind of. So they can do that. The next thing I wanted to look at was, will they be able to read other players, like the other players' facial expressions? That's also important. You need to be able to tell if other people are bluffing. And there was a 2016 study where they showed dogs a bunch of images of human faces and dog faces doing like different expressions, like neutral expressions, pleasant expressions, and threatening expressions. And they observed that the gazing patterns on each image, the gazing pattern is sort of like where they focus their gaze on the image. It differed depending on the expression of the dog or the human. So they concluded that they were able to identify emotions and like social threats. So in the case of a poker game, it might not be as obvious as this study was, but they would be able to pick up on if someone is trying to be deceptive, I guess. Now, in terms of like if the person is lying to them, I want to see if they could like pick up on the tone. So once again, there's another study, lots of studies, where they found that just like humans, so humans, they are able to process intonation and spoken word, like the lexicon of words that you use. You're able to process them separately. So if someone is saying something like, I am happy, but they actually sound angry, we are able to process those separately and identify that they're not actually happy. Dogs have the same capability, so if someone says something during the poker game, they'll be able to identify that they're lying. And then one final factor that's pretty important in poker is they need to be able to know if they have a good hand, because obviously that's important.
Yes, as a wise man once said, they have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Yeah. So I looked into if dogs can actually count, and there was a 2013 study. This is the final study, I promise.
This is the last study on dogs. After this, we had no more need to learn anything else about dogs.
Yeah.
We knew it all.
But in the study, there were like 2 bowls, and they filled the bowls with food, but they did it like one piece of food at a time in each one, and they did different amounts in both of the bowls in front of the dog. So the dog is watching them put the food in the bowls one at a time, theoretically, so that the dog could count how much was in each bowl and then choose the one that has more food. But there was no consistency in the bowl that the dog chose. There was consistency when there was no food in one and food in the other. Then the dog always chose the one with food. But if there was more food in one than in the other, but there's food in both, then they kind of just chose whatever. So it's not looking good for our dogs. That they kind of concluded from that dogs cannot count, which would be bad for our poker playing. But then in the same study, they started to change things around. There are a lot of different controls that they're experimenting with. And eventually they got to a new version of the experiment where they had 2 bowls again. On top of the bowls, they had boxes with a number of shapes on them. So, like, on one box you might have 2 shapes on them, the other you might have 5. And the one that has 5 has the food. The one with 2 does not. And for this experiment, they got much more consistent results. The dog pretty consistently chose the one with more shapes. And what they concluded was that dogs are bad at what they call sequential processing, which is like one at a time. So you see one, and you see another, and you count those 2 separately. And then you like put together that there's 2. They're bad at that. What they're good at is simultaneously processing, which is you see everything at once, and you can tell that that's more than the other one. So that is lucky for us because playing cards have shapes on them, at least the ones from 2 to 10. So they'll be good with the 2 to 10 cards. They'll probably not recognize the higher value cards, which might be an issue.
They could maybe recognize the faces. They could be like, oh, that's what the Jack dude looks like.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could maybe have them memorize it. They wouldn't recognize that it's like a higher. I guess you could teach them that it's a higher value, maybe. So yeah, maybe that's how you do it. And I guess you'd have to teach them that ace, because ace looks like 1 to them, but ace is actually very good. So I don't know.
You gotta teach that to humans too.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, they can deal with the cards. Like, they can handle the cards, they can bluff, they can read their players, and they can tell that they have a good hand. So I think that they can actually play poker if we can train them to do that.
I have one potential gap.
Yes, what is that?
Can a dog control its tail wagging? If it gets a good hand, is it going to be...
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Is it going to be given away?
I mean, their tail's under the table, so...
do we know if dogs also heat up when they get nervous? Because then they would have to start panting.
Good question as well.
Pretty big tell.
I don't know. It might go both ways though. Like, because dogs can smell you sweat. So.
Yeah, I did not look those up, but future episode.
I do like the idea of just like this stone-faced dog, just like he's got a little hat covering half of his eyes, like real dressed up for the poker night. Gets a good hand, like goes all in. And then just like you just hear thudding under the chair, thudding against the chair, like just like. Thump, 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 thump.
Yeah, you just got to make sure nothing's around their tail to hit. Mm-hmm. Then they won't know because they can't see the tail; it's under the table. So anyway, Ben, what did you do?
So I looked into dogs playing sports. Specifically, I looked into the Air Bud movie franchise. So if you're not familiar with the Air Bud franchise, Air Bud was a 1997 family comedy about a basketball-playing dog. The dog, Buddy, was originally owned by an alcoholic clown who loses him when the kennel falls out of his car.
What? I don't remember that.
Yeah, man, so apparently the start of this movie is this alcoholic clown, like, uses the dog because it can catch balls in its mouth. and like the dog gets him in trouble at a birthday party he was doing, and he gets fired. So he gets angry and is driving Buddy to the pound to like, give him up for adoption at the pound. When the kennel falls out of his car, gets hit by the car being driven by the family of the main character, who then like makes eye contact with the dog as it runs away because the cage is now open. And then they move because his dad had just died. So the beginning's really a downer, honestly.
Jesus.
I do not remember that at all.
Yeah, but then basically the dog finds him and they become friends, and the dog can play basketball, and the kid is like on his middle school basketball team, which then starts using the dog as their mascot, and then for like the halftime show. And then the dog doesn't actually play basketball with him until the state championship, where they have injury trouble and get down to just 4 players left, which is where we then get to the infamous line, "Ain't no rule saying a dog can't play basketball." Which, by the way, I am 100% going to call bullshit on this whole thing, by the way, because although I'm sure there is not a rule specifically blocking dogs from playing basketball, it's a middle school basketball team. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of rule saying that all the players have to be middle school students. That seems like a reasonable rule.
Didn't we literally, in our NFL mascot football one, didn't we say that there's no rule that these animals couldn't play?
Yes, I'm pretty sure, yes, we did. Anyway, yes, Buddy joins the team during the state championship, and they win the championship. And yeah, and that's Air Bud. I would like to point out, by the way, Air Bud is not actually the first movie about an animal that plays a sport, because there isn't technically a rule against it. There is a 1976 movie called Gus, which is about a Yugoslavian mule who becomes a place kicker for a football team because he can kick a field goal from anywhere on the field. I am not making this up. This is an actual movie.
Was it popular?
I don't think so. I had never heard of it before. I will say the poster is wonderful. I'm hoping Chris can put this in the YouTube version. You can Google it if you're listening to the podcast. I just put it in our chat here as well. This is the poster for the movie, which is this cartoony mule being carried on the shoulders of these cartoony people. I don't know. It's something.
What an ass.
There we go. There's the joke. But yeah, so that was not the only Air Bud movie. Was not the original. There were 4 additional Air Bud movies. There was Air Bud Golden Receiver, where he plays football; Air Bud World Pup, where he plays soccer; Air Bud 7th Inning Fetch, where he plays baseball; and Air Bud Spikes Back, where he plays volleyball.
Volleyball seems a real tough sport for a dog.
It does. It does. We're going to get to that. Don't worry.
I think I only saw the basketball one and the soccer one.
I definitely only saw the basketball one. I feel like I like at Blockbuster, I saw on the shelves the other ones at some point and never watched them wisely, because apparently they were all bad, including the first one. Let's be honest here.
Well, I liked them as a kid.
There is also an Air Bud Cinematic Universe, the ABCU, which is, there is the Air Buddies series, which is during Air Bud World Pup, Buddy has puppies with another dog named Molly. They have 6 puppies: Rosebud, Butta, Butterball, Mud. Oh God, what's the other one? Did I typo this, or is that actually its name? Hold on. Wait.
That's a good sign.
Wait. No, Mud Bud. I've definitely typoed that. Mud Bud and B-Dog.
What did you typo it as?
Mud Bud, which is the Welsh version, I'm sure. And B-Dog, who, yes, is the rapping one. There is one that raps, who loves hip-hop and wears a platinum chain with a B on it around his neck. So there are 7 of those: Air Buddies, Snow Buddies, Space Buddies, Santa Buddies, Spooky Buddies, Treasure Buddies, and Super Buddies. And none of them do they actually play sports, so we're going to ignore them, but they do exist. Technically, you can also make the claim that there is the Air Bud Extended Cinematic Universe, or AVECU, which the Air Bud franchise is created by a company called Air Bud Entertainment, who makes a variety of animal-focused movies. In addition to the Air Bud and Buddies movies, there are also 11 more movies. There's the MVP franchise, which is MVP Most Valuable Primate, which is a hockey-playing ape; MP2 Most Vertical Primate, which is about a skateboarding ape; MXP Most Extreme Primate, which is about a snowboarding ape. Those are all the same ape, but then there's also Spy Mate, which is a different ape who is a super spy.
And these are officially part of the Air Bud franchise?
I could not get they are produced by Air Bud Entertainment. I could not get a clean answer on if they are canonically in the same universe or not.
You gotta wait for the plot where they all come together.
Yeah.
You got Doctor Strange has gotta come.
I need Airbud and
combine all
Infinity
the
War.
Airbuds.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, we have the U.S. is going to the Olympics next week, and all the players are injured. They all got hit by crazy clowns, and their dads are all dead.
And there's a few more. There's like one where a duke writes his nephew out of the will and leaves everything to his dog instead. There's one where a young girl and her brother befriend a talking bunny who is struggling to be taken seriously as an actor. Which I don't know. And there's 4 separate movies about a televised dog singing competition called Pup Star, which looks like The Voice but with dogs, including all the hosts being dogs. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. But we've kind of lost the plot here. Let's get back to what's important, which is which of these sports would a team of trained dogs actually be good at? I want to make it clear that I do not expect that any of these are actually going to be like pro-level teams. My goal here is just to get to the point where we could have like a Harlem Globetrotters traveling show where they can play against, like a local team or something and technically play the sport, right? Like that's kind of the aim here. We're going to go through first the original Airbud sports in order of how bad dogs would be at them. Baseball feels like a clear dogs cannot play baseball. Dogs cannot throw or bat. It's not possible.
Really good at catching, though, or at least chasing the ball.
Great at catching the ball, probably. That's as much as they can do, though. So baseball, right out. Just not going to work. Basketball, also a no. Yes, technically, I do think that basketball is the one that the dog legitimately did in the movies, but all it really does is kind of just bounce the ball into the hoop with its nose, which is impressive. Definitely, don't get me wrong.
Would that work, though? Would that not hurt the dog?
I think he could do it. I think they may have used like a slightly softer ball. I don't think it was directly out the front of his nose. It was kind of off like his forehead, nose, like bridge area. I don't know. But he did actually do that. That was legitimately a dog hitting a ball into a basketball.
What? I remember it as bad CGI.
There's definitely parts of it that are somewhat faked, but
I mean, CGI wasn't that good back then. I think you'd be able to tell the
97
CGI.
97 was 2 years before The Matrix. That's not, it wasn't like a CG dog.
For a full dog?
Well, no, okay, the dog the ball would be CG. It wouldn't be the dog. The dog would be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's the smarter way to go.
Right, yeah. So I'm going to say that dogs can also not play basketball. They can't dribble. They can't, defend at all, definitely. It's just basketball, non-starter. Volleyball, we can get close. I think that dogs could definitely set a basketball, or not a basketball, a volleyball. But unfortunately, a dog could not spike a volleyball. Volleyball nets are 7 feet, 11 and 5/8 inches tall. And according to Guinness World Records, the highest recorded dog jump was 6 feet, 3.5 inches. So I think that technically dogs could quote unquote play volleyball, but they would be very, very bad at it because they kind of just set the ball back over. I also don't think they could serve. I will say if you could have one human who serves and then runs up to be able to spike, that might work surprisingly well. Because I do think dogs could set the ball pretty well. That I can buy.
What if the one person has all the dogs? It wouldn't be necessary, but have all the dogs on a leash.
I was thinking that, and it would be hilarious. Yes.
Big dog walker, and then just the leashes get gradually tangled as the points go on.
It would be wonderful. To the point where I think we could actually kind of say the dogs could play the sport on their own. Actually, football. They still cannot throw the ball, which is not ideal. But it is possible to run an offense that doesn't throw the ball. It's pretty common in high school because high school players suck. And in college, actually, the Armed Forces Academy teams, so Army, Navy, and Air Force, they are famously barely throw the ball. In the 21-22 college football season, all 3 of those teams averaged 9 or fewer passes per game, and they just would run the ball 50 times. That's just what they do. So technically you could have a dog-based offense that is just all running the ball. In terms of blocking and whatnot, the largest dog breed, as far as I can tell, is the English Mastiff, which can weigh about 230 pounds. So I do think you could legitimately have a dog offensive line / defensive line that would work reasonably well.
Yeah, I feel like 230 pounds of dog is
It's a lot
more
of
than 230
dog.
pounds of human.
Exactly. Yeah. So very, very heavily run-based offense. Pass defense, very hard because, as previously mentioned, dogs jumping about 6 feet. So that part's going to be pretty rough. But you could technically have a dog football team that I would be okay saying that they can play football. That one is fair. I do think that the sport of these are the dogs who play the best would probably be soccer. Because the most important rule of soccer is that you can't use your hands and dogs don't have hands. So they're really just ahead of the game there.
Can they use their mouth?
But
Is there any rule against using your mouth?
Probably not. Ain't no rule that says you can't use your mouth.
It's right here next to... It's written right here next to... There ain't no rule about dogs not playing soccer.
Yeah.
That's actually in here, weirdly.
It's actually in here. Don't know why. None of the other sports say it, but soccer, it's
usually hard to prove a negative, but there it is.
It's right there. Goalie would be a little bit tough because similar problem. The crossbar is 8 feet off the ground, so there would be a 2-ish foot gap where the ball could slip through without being touchable by a dog. But I mean, we're not going to be able to do everything, guys. That's going to be as good as we can get, I think, in terms of the Airbud sports. Is a soccer playing dog team. In terms of non-Airbud sports that weren't covered, I'd say that anything like track or something is clearly a cop-out. I'm not gonna try to BS you with that. That's not good. I considered ultimate frisbee. Clearly, dogs are good at catching frisbees. That is a known thing with dogs. But sadly, dogs cannot throw frisbees. I did find 2 YouTube videos that attested that a dog could throw a frisbee. One of them was not a frisbee. It was one of those foam ring things where it's just maybe a 2-inch strip of foam that's like a circle and then hollow in the middle.
Oh yeah, or the ones that fold up real small.
Yeah,
you get
exactly.
Gift bags or whatever.
It was kind of like tossing that up in the air, but that's not throwing a frisbee. And the other one was clearly a video of a dog that was catching a frisbee that had been reversed. So dogs cannot throw frisbees. Dogs cannot play ultimate frisbee. I was hoping that would be an answer, but no.
I love the idea of like a midair catch being reversed. I'm like, yeah,
no,
look, this dog throw this frisbee.
It seriously
was
was.
Backflip.
It was like the dog jumping straight up in the air, and then just the frisbee flying out of its mouth. And it's no. I'm pretty sure it was a joke because it ended with a man catching the frisbee in his mouth. So I don't think it was trying to be serious, but it was called dog throwing frisbee. Please share.
Wait, how'd that man throw it with his mouth then?
Very impressive.
It was reversed.
That's actually pretty impressive, catching a frisbee in your mouth as a person.
Yeah, I imagine there were a very good blooper reel on that one that sadly was not shared.
Would there be? I mean, how many chances do you get at that before you have incredible dentist bills?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Regardless, the one sport that I could legitimately see a team of dogs being able to perform pretty well at, and I'm bringing it back, it's curling. It is curling. All you gotta do in curling is slide a thing. You can hold the handle of the stone in the dog's mouth and do a little twist on it to get it to curl. And then you just gotta hold the brooms in your mouth and sweep. Dogs can do that. Dogs can run on ice very easily. It works. Dogs get 100% curl. So if you have to stick to Airbud sports, your dog to play soccer. If you don't, I think you could have a curling dog team.
Or diving.
Okay, that falls under the same category as like track or something. If it's something where it's just having a body is the only qualification, yes, a dog can do that. Dogs have bodies. Anyway, point being, Marcus, what did you do?
So I missed the memo of just proving dog movies or pop culture dog references real. So what I like to do with these is kind of just go into researching cool things that the animals can do, and then finding one that I'm like, what? And kind of going from there. So the obvious one for dogs is their sense of smell. They're very good at smelling. And I was like, well, let me look what else I can find. And then I couldn't find anything else, which is kind of surprising. There's so many breeds of dogs, but all I could find for impressive dog feats and cool dog facts was either them smelling things well or them learning to do something impressive. And so the latter half doesn't really apply, and the first half is smelling. And then I was looking at the things that dogs can smell, and it is wild, dumb wild. Obviously they use dogs they have drug sniffing dogs. Dogs can smell drugs from a good distance pretty accurately. That's in pretty common use. Dogs can also smell bed bugs. They've trained dogs to do that. Dogs can also smell early stage lung and breast cancer. They can smell ovulation and pregnancy. They can smell diabetes and can actually smell changes in someone with diabetes glucose levels based on their breath. They've trained dogs to sniff out human remains, and the dogs are digging up stuff for archaeologists, 3,000-year-old human remains. Farmers, they'll use dogs to sniff out which cows are fertile. And there's even a dog that is trained to smell out whale poops for a group of whale researchers. And they can smell it from up to 1.6 miles away. They can find whale poop just from the boat.
It's the poop. Oh, so I can smell it through the water?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I didn't see if the whale poop floats or if it sinks.
I would assume that it floats, right?
Why would you assume that?
I don't know. I actually honestly don't know, but I would assume that it floats.
Does whale poop float?
Okay,
It does float.
Cool.
Okay.
I assumed correctly.
But it wasn't known, like, it was a known issue for the whale conservationists because they were like, well, we usually find whales by looking for the poop, but it's kind of hard to find. But the dog can do it for them. And pretty amazing and relevant to today. So the dogs actually have the ability to specifically sniff out coronavirus, which is pretty amazing.
Can they sniff out, like, is it like literally just coronavirus? I mean, I guess you said like cancers and things, but like, are there other viruses they have been trained to sniff out, or?
Yeah, like, will you get a false positive if they have other things?
So so they've done studies. So it was kind of tough to tell. So they've done studies where the dogs can detect it and smell it out. Of course, it's not 100% perfect, but I believe it's specific to coronavirus. I'm not sure if adjacent flu viruses are included, but I believe it's specific to the coronavirus, like in an impressive way. Like,
That's really interesting.
yeah, so they're actually, like I said, they're actually actively training up like some dogs to do that, and they would actually go in airports like the drug sniffing dogs and try and find people infected at the airport, which would be kind of actually just wild. Where you ever feel weirdly guilty like when the drug sniffing dog comes by at the airport, like you're just waiting in line and you just see this dog sitting there like, oh shit, better be on my best behavior. Like, you don't have drugs.
I still love the idea that like a dog comes up to you and like looks at you and like looks back at a man, and the man's like, "Excuse me, sir, this dog says you're sick."
Yeah, I know I don't have drugs, and I still feel slightly uncomfortable. I don't know forever for sure if I don't have coronavirus, so that's gonna be like very stressful, that walk down that line, but it would be great. So the dogs can do all these amazing things, but the only thing is that it's tricky to train dogs to do them. Dogs are pretty smart, and of course they can be trained, but generally it's really only effective to train them on like one or two main scents. But if we can perfectly train the dogs, it opens up the option to really have a dog be sensing all sorts of things. So if a dog can be trained on all these scents very easily, it makes them really handy. And my first instinct was just like to train like super dog nurses that would just like go around and smell out all these different diseases and do these things. But then I started thinking bigger, because I think we could use dogs to help just end the pandemic. That's what we're going to do with these dogs. And we're going to do this via dog surveys, is what I'm going to call them. The idea is we have 76.8 million dogs in the US. Let's say a dog, if it's walking kind of in a straight line, can sniff out the important things within an area of 50 feet within itself. Given that this dog can smell whale poop for miles, 50 feet seems like a pretty reasonable range for like a slow search like this. The United States as a whole is effectively, or if you round it out to a rectangle, is about 1,200 miles top to bottom. So to create a line 50 feet apart from the top of the US to the bottom, it would take 126,720 dogs. There's 76.8 million dogs in the US. If we get all of them, if we have a National Dog Day where all the dogs come in, I guess I haven't talked about I'll just be training 76.8 million dogs even by magic, but if we have 126,000 dogs per line, we can get 606 lines spanning across the country, which means each dog on Dog Day would need to cover an area 50 feet in width and 4.15 miles long. That's pretty reasonable.
International Dog Day, by the way, is August 26th.
That's when it
Perfect
would be.
day
No,
for it.
That'd be a bad day to do. It's gonna be really, really hot. Like, if I'm gonna expect a dog, like some of these dogs are gonna be like in New Mexico somewhere. Let's do it in the early spring or something. So what you can do is you just have these dogs that go, and they're trained enough to be able to pick up on whatever the major stuff is. Like, so let's start with the coronavirus. Like, the dog goes and it sniffs the people it comes across, and if you got coronavirus, it like will know to either like, there'll be a signal or like a little card or something it can give you, I guess. Like, it just hands you like a little like it's just got a little chest packet of pamphlets and just kind of grabs one out and like hands it to you. It's like, hey, I smell you have coronavirus. What's next? And I mean, dogs, you also got dogs that can be herding animals. The dogs could also enforce quarantine if people ignore the pamphlets. So that's all good, and it would be help in like early diagnostics for lots of different things. But that doesn't necessarily make me rich. I mean, I could cash in on that, but let's say we're doing that out of the goodness of our hearts. Because there's one other thing that I want to use with the dogs, and that is while they're on this dog survey, they just pick up loose change. So I wanted to see kind of how many coins are lost each year. Because if you just had a dog that went by and it was just like, because they can smell out. I saw a couple of videos of dogs of a guy training dogs to pick up like silver coins or this or the other thing. So no one has bothered to train a dog to go find pennies. But it wouldn't be a hassle to do these dogs. It would just be that easy. It would just be one of the, dozen or so cents that they know. So as far as an estimate about how many coins are lost and loose around the country, the Coinstar did an estimate because, and I'm going to trust their estimate because they have the most motivation to figure out how many freaking loose coins around the country for their business model because they're the ones that cash them in for actual money. Coinstar estimates that there is $10 billion across the U.S. that is lost as, quote unquote couch change. That is just like money that is ignored, dropped, lost, just literally out of circulation money that you can just go and pick up. And even if 9 out of 10 of these coins are in are in people's actual couches in their homes and loose drawers, because that's where most of my loose change is, I believe, that's still $1 billion on your first survey going across the country. There's a company, Corvana, they're a trash company. They got into the research a little bit because they actually will point out money from trash they collect because they use magnets on the trash for like scrap metal and things like that. And they say they pick up about, an average of 25 cents per ton of garbage, which doesn't sound like much, but they estimated that there are $62.8 million in coins lost each year that are like actually like dropped out in trash and like outside. And then kind of one of the other crazier estimates is that the US Mint estimates that 70% of all pennies fall out of circulation. So they produced, for example, $4.17 billion in new pennies in 2014, and they expect 70% of those to be lost.
So those penny rolling machines.
Yeah, well, I can just trash them at a Coinstar. I just kind of deal with them.
Yeah.
Their business model is going to need a look-see after I take all the spare change out of the world.
Well, so you're not going to use them to cash your money?
Well, once you have that kind of clout, you can just you work out a deal. You don't just go have the dogs go to the machine. I guess you could have the dogs go to the machines. That might even be the quickest way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to count all this change yourself.
Oh, no. But I might say, hey, Coinstar.
Dogs can't count.
I have 3,500 metric tons of coins for you. They'll cut me a good deal.
They have nearly 20,000 kiosks worldwide. Wow. Apparently 90% of the U.S. population lives within 5 miles of one. That's an actually insane stat.
I wonder if that's skewed by the ridiculous percentage of human population that live in cities compared to not cities.
That's probably true, yeah. But
anyway, that's kind of my plan, is you can have these super good dog surveys that will save us from the pandemic. We're going to end the coronavirus. We're going to, let people know who and who isn't pregnant. We're going to find all this early stage cancer. We can get rid of bed bugs on the way. We can check if there's any whales lying around in Colorado too. But we're going to do all that, and we're going to do all that for free. And then me personally, I'm going to cash on and become a overnight billionaire on the money that would have otherwise just been lost and not used. So it's all upside. Everything's upside.
With your special dog radio that can communicate with every dog at once.
Well, the thing is, I just have to meet every dog once, because once I train them, I just train them to go and do this on a specific day. So yeah, it'll be up to the population to bring me their dogs. So again, maybe I only have, or maybe a tenth of the people bring me their dog to train them for dog day. But even then, like, if it goes from 4 miles of walking to 40 miles of walking, it could be dog week. It could just be, the numbers are pretty reasonable after all that.
Could you train a dog to train a dog? Because then you could train dogs to go out and train all the dogs.
Damn, we haven't talked about training them to train each other. Oh,
this is getting into the what's the Fantasia thing with the
with the brooms.
The brooms, yeah.
Yeah, no, that seems dangerous. It seems dangerous, but I kind of like it. So yeah, that's my. Well, I could do that instead if anyone wants to call me out on people not willing to send their dogs over for the beautiful dog day.
And then you train a subset to bring coins to central locations where other dogs you have trained will bring the coins to you. Then you don't have to go anywhere. The dogs just bring it all to you.
And then eventually they're going to realize they don't need you, and that they're going to abandon you and take over.
Well, that's why you have the kill code, where you train the dogs that if this contract gets ripped, if you see this contract get ripped up, I blow my special dog whistle, and then the dogs are trained to overthrow the government. So yeah, you gotta put in your own safety nets there. So I guess that's the dark side of me training every single dog is I'm gonna save diseases, fix coronavirus, get rich without anyone giving me a dime that they didn't already not have, and also looming threat of world takeover.
Yay!
On Dog Day on August 26th. Get ready for it.
No, it's gonna be like April 4th.
Okay, April 4th. Get ready for it.
April 4th, get ready. 4/4. All right, with that, we got to move on before this gets any darker. We'll hop over into our Would You Rather question. Chris, are you ready for a Would You Rather?
I am ready.
Would you rather always type or always write by hand?
My instinct, without really thinking about it, is always type, because that's way easier, and I feel like I type way more often than I handwrite in general. I do handwrite things for my job a lot, though.
I think you might get in trouble with like legal documents.
Well, you can electronically sign things.
There's going to be a lot of awkward times where someone asks you to like sign something or write something, or you're playing a game or like showing a kid how to write or something, and they're like, hey, can you write this for me? Or hey, just write your name here. And you're like, actually, can you email that to me? I really can't. No, I just can't.
I mean, that's not that big of a deal. You always have your phone with you. I think having to handwrite everything would be a big deal.
Does this eliminate voice to text?
I think so, because that doesn't count as typing. You have to type everything, or you have to handwrite everything.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So I guess like writing something on your phone, does that count as typing?
I would say yes, but if you use one of those things where you can like trace the letter and it turns it into the letter, that you can do, which is very annoying.
One of those notepad things.
Like a notepad thing, exactly, yeah.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah, it's annoying, but it at least still lets you like use a phone.
Oh, so you're saying that counts as
I would say that
handwriting?
counts as handwriting, yeah.
Okay.
If you are tracing the shape of the letters and whatnot, that counts as handwriting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I'm trying to think. I'm having trouble thinking of a specific example where handwriting is important. Like signing documents, I see it as important. Like with kids, I feel it's important.
Also, just like going out to eat, you pay with a credit card.
I mean, a lot of places you sign electronically now, even with restaurants.
I wouldn't say a lot of places.
Yeah, I would say
some
less than
places.
I more often sign a check. Not check, a receipt.
Oh, I guess we're saying it's only you, and it's not like a society thing. So it's not like...
Right,
it's only you.
Only you.
Okay.
Like, I don't think there's anything that you really get like, the things you get hosed on in terms of not being able to type are things like, I don't know, you can't like use an ATM. That's pretty annoying, but I don't think there's anything you're blocked from doing, not being able to type.
I mean, like, anything... yeah, anything work-related.
It's pretty bad. Yeah, okay, so that's not great.
Well, the thing is, you also could reasonably find a job that involved less typing. I mean, at least in my field.
Yeah. There are jobs you can find. Like, it may require a career change, but you could find a job. God, I really hate handwriting stuff, but...
See, I don't know. For me, it's like the social I really dislike the social pressures not being able to handwrite, where it's like not easily explained, even if people even if you could explain your circumstance, it's like really inconvenient sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of all the reasons, all the times it would be, but I can like think of ones where I really would rather not lose that ability. And I wouldn't mind handwriting. Like, I think if you handwrite more often, you get better and faster at it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it's like an endearing quirk to like send if I had a work email, for example, I could use a type touch, but like imagine like you like handwrite your emails to people and scan them in and send them.
I would think that person is really weird and not. I would think it was quirky.
I would be more annoyed. I might find it quirky. I would not find someone who refuses to ever handwrite anything quirky. I would find that incredibly annoying.
I would probably just interpret it as they don't know how to use technology.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Again, neither of these are perfect. Having both abilities is best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't shake the gut feeling though. Like typing I type 90%, 95% of what I do. but I think the 5% that I do with handwriting, I said do. Professional podcaster here. Hello.
I've trained myself to ignore when people say do.
I will never. I refuse to ever do that.
Anyway, I can't shake the gut feeling, so I'm gonna have to go with handwriting. I'd like to be able to handwrite and not type.
Really?
I think I agree with you as well. As annoying as it would be, yeah.
I disagree. I think I mean, just like Marcus, 95% of what I do is type, or what I write is type instead of handwritten. And like the only case that I can think of where I'd have to handwrite something is signing something for like a credit card or something like that. But I can just use cash. Like I don't need to use a credit card.
Actually, Chris, you're in a bad spot because you write books, so handwriting a book sucks.
Yeah, like handwriting long things sucks.
But also, if you become a successful author, you gotta sign them.
And you don't have to handwrite your signature.
I mean, it's gonna.
Yeah, you kind of do.
If I ordered a signed book and it has like an ink stamp that says like, "Hi, I'm blank. Hope you like the book," I'm gonna be pretty pissed off.
Well, I'm never going to get to that point if I can only handwrite, I think, so.
Fair enough.
All right, fair enough, yeah. All right, with that, we go on to the bit of the episode where I ask you guys for stuff. You, the listener, the one listening to this podcast right now, perk up, ears up, listen, this is the important bit. Important stuff. Send us questions. We need more questions. We finally did a dog question. That's it, we're out of animals now. We need more stuff. So think of your cool hypothetical question that you happen to think of while you're listening to this episode that's semi-related but not quite. Put it in an email. Put it in the YouTube comments is the easiest way if you're listening on YouTube. Or throw us an email, absurdhypotheticals@gmail.com. Very easy to remember. And just send it. Just send your question as is. Absurd hypotheticals question. Here you go. We'd love to get more of those, and very happy to incorporate listener questions on the show. And you'll be immortalized forever in this digital format of audio only that doesn't involve typing or handwriting. Also, important thing to do. Again, ears up. I don't know why I'm saying this a lot, but ears up, listen.
You're a dog. Ears up.
This is how you take your spare change and turn it into our spare change, as I've trained you so expertly to do. Go to www.patreon.com/absurdhypotheticals and become a patron for just $1 a month. You become one of our Absurd Hypotheticals and get access to all our bonus content specifically for our patrons that we release each month. Cool stuff there. And if you're enjoying the show, of course, leave us a review, whatever platform you're listening on. If you're listening to on one of the podcast players, there's review buttons right over there. I don't think YouTube has reviews. It's just got likes and subscribes. So, the things that all the other YouTubers tell you to do. Pretend like I said those things.
Like, subscribe, and a bell.
Yeah, smash that bell is what I hear a lot.
That's what they do in Philadelphia. Ring the bell.
Well, whatever you want to do with your bell, that's up to you, as long as you do it and it makes our numbers go up. So, thank you, listener, for doing those 3 things in that order. Now you are qualified and welcome to listen to our question that we'll be answering next week. And that question is, what if Greek mythology was real?